In this video, I'm going to walk you step by step through setting up a brand new podcast on Anchor. Anchor is the podcast hosting platform that is free. It's very, very popular and it's owned by Spotify. I'm going to walk through completely from scratch and demonstrate to you how simple it is so that you can do the exact same. So the first thing you want to do is head over to anchor.fm. I'll make sure I link the links in the description so you can go straight there. All you're going to do is click on the Get Started button directly on the screen, or if you want to, you can head over to the Sign Up button. Now what you're going to have to do is create your account. So make sure to add your full name, your email address, set a password, date of birth, all of the things that you would expect to do. I'm going to do it very, very quickly right now. So now we've signed our podcast up onto Anchor, but before we go any further, you've got to make sure that you verify your email address with Anchor. Now, one thing I would say is do this as soon as you start, because I've done this many times and this email can get lost and it can be quite hard to get them to resend it through. For some reason, even though they resend it through, it just sometimes doesn't come through. So the email is all verified. We are ready to go. Let's continue through to the dashboard. So the first thing it prompts you to do is make a podcast trailer. Most podcast directories like Apple, Spotify, Google and stuff, they need a minimum of one episode for them to host them on their platform. You can, like any normal podcasting stuff, you can record this separately. You can do a video podcast and import the audio in. Do whatever you want. You can also record directly into Anchor just using the record button, and they have a ton of other features. I'm sure I'll break this down in another tutorial video on how to use these. So for this video, I'm just going to drag in an audio file for one of my YouTube videos and drop it in. Now, one of the great things about Anchor, it is the place where if you want to do video podcasting for Spotify, you can upload through Anchor. This is their main platform for this. But for this one, I'm going to do audio only. Once the audio is all ready to go, just click on Save Episode, and you're going to be brought into the episode options. You've got title, description, and you can decide to schedule these episodes depending on what you want. But for the first episode, you want to make sure that you just publish it directly and publish it straight away. And for this one, I'm going to call it Season 1, Episode 1, and it's going to be actually a trailer episode, and it is clean. Make sure that you tick this box if you do choose to swear and you turn it explicit. Otherwise, you will break terms and conditions for many podcast platforms. After doing that, we're just going to click on Next, and this is now going to bring us through to setting up the podcast itself. So I'm going to now give this podcast a name. This podcast is going to be called Ash Borland Test, How to Make a Podcast on Anchor. So when you go into category, you've got the main category and then subcategories. Now, for me, I'm going to call this business in marketing. You also want to make sure you pick the language. So for us, English. Now we're through to the podcast cover artwork. So you're going to just upload a podcast image for this. Now for me, I actually use Canva a lot. We're going to dive into Canva now. Just search a podcast cover image for this video. But I use Canva to create all my podcast artwork, and there's videos and tutorials on how to do that. But for this one, we're just going to take this one right here, click on it, and just download it and use it for today's video. So all you're going to do is click on the upload image, go over to the folder where I've downloaded it, into downloads, and then you can add any image that you want as long as it fits in within their parameters. Now those parameters are 3000 by 3000. You can have the choice here as well to apply text or apply the Anchor logo. Now, in my opinion, don't apply a text and don't apply Anchor logos, because this is one, very amateur looking, and the Anchor logo doesn't make your podcast look any good. Turn those things off. Create this either in Canva or have somebody like a graphic designer build it for you. Do not have those on. Just turn those features off. So now we're ready to publish. Now it says when we hit this publish button, this is now going to be available on Anchor for anybody through the RSS feed, as well as Spotify, because Anchor is owned by Spotify, but it doesn't mean it's available everywhere else. So we're going to hit publish right now. So we now have a podcast that is live on Anchor and Spotify that people can listen to. So the next thing you need to do is make sure that you enable your RSS feed. So what does an RSS feed do? Well, an RSS feed allows your podcast to appear in other podcast apps, and in some cases automatically. This feed is public and contains your email address. Okay, so this is very important. You could just press enable, and what's going to happen is it's going to create an RSS feed, and you can then copy and paste this. You also want to add your email to the RSS feed, so that way you're able to distribute your podcast on other platforms, because they will send you verification emails like we had at the beginning. So just press add, there. Once you've done this, you've got your RSS feed. Now you can go through these podcast apps and distribute directly to them. You just click on their links and you'll submit your RSS feed to them. And then what will happen is over time, these podcast apps will start to appear in the podcast discoverability, in the podcast availability section of Anchor. That is when you'll be able to start seeing more downloads from all the apps. If you want to check out my tutorials on Anchor and how to make the most out of this platform, then do check out this playlist right here.